the retirement industry has convinced you that your 60s and 70s are for winding down, playing it safe, and accepting decline. They've created an entire economy built on the myth that your productive years end at 65. But what if this is the biggest scam in modern history? What if your accumulated wisdom, resources, and freedom from caring what others think makes this the most powerful phase of your life? What if the very time they told you to step aside is when you should be stepping up? Right now, somewhere in this world, a 92-year-old woman named Margaret is sitting in her first medical school lecture while her classmates are decades younger. She takes notes with the same determination that carried her through raising 5 children and running a successful business for 30 years. When reporters ask her why she decided to become a doctor at 92, she simply says, "I have at least 20 good years left. I might as well spend them helping people heal." Margaret didn't wake up one morning and think she was too old. She woke up and decided she was exactly the right age to begin. This is not a fairy tale. This is not an exception. This is what happens when someone refuses to accept the biggest lie our society tells us, that there is a perfect time for everything. And once that time passes, the door closes forever. The truth is, the only perfect time is right now. The only closed door is the one you refuse to push open. Every single day, millions of people surrender their dreams to a calendar. They look at their age and decide they have missed their chance. They calculate the years ahead and convince themselves it's not enough time. They compare themselves to others who started younger and conclude they can never catch up. But here's what they don't understand. Life is not a race with a single starting line. Life is a series of new beginnings, and each moment offers you the chance to start again. The most successful people in history understood this principle. Laura Ingalls Wilder didn't publish her first Little House book until she was 64. Ray Kroc was 52 when he founded McDonald's. Grandma Moses didn't start painting until she was 78 and went on to create over 1.5 works of art. Colonel Sanders was 65 when he franchised KFC. These people didn't have some special gene that made them immune to aging. They simply refused to accept that their best years were behind them, but society has trained us to think differently. We're taught that certain achievements belong to certain ages. We're told that learning new skills gets harder as we get older, that changing careers is risky after 40, that starting a business requires the energy of youth. These are not facts, these are beliefs, and beliefs can be changed as easily as clothes. The psychology behind these age barriers runs deep. From childhood, we're conditioned to follow a predetermined path. Go to school, get a job, work for 40 years, then retire and wait for life to end. This linear thinking creates artificial deadlines in our minds. We tell ourselves we should have figured out our career by 25, found our life partner by 30, achieved financial success by 40. When we don't meet these arbitrary timelines, we feel like failures. We start believing we've missed our chance. But what if I told you that these timelines are completely made up? What if the most exciting phase of your life is actually ahead of you, not behind you? What if every year you've lived has been preparation for what you're about to become? The human brain doesn't care about your age when it comes to learning and growing. Scientists have proven that your brain can form new neural pathways at any age. Your capacity for change, learning, and growth doesn't diminish with time. It only gets stronger with use. The person who tells you they're too old to learn something new is really telling you they've decided to stop growing. But you don't have to make that decision. Consider this. If you're 50 years old today and you live to be 85, you have 35 years ahead of you. That's enough time to master a new skill, build a business, write a book, learn a language, travel the world, or completely reinvent yourself. If you're 60, you still have 25 years. If you're 70, you have 15 years. Even if you're 80, you could have 10 or more years of active, productive life ahead of you. The question isn't whether you have enough time. The question is, what you're going to do with the time you have. The reason people accept these limitations is that our culture worships youth and treats aging like a disease. We're bombarded with messages that our value decreases with age, that innovation belongs to the young, that wisdom comes at the cost of opportunity. This is not just wrong, it's destructive. It causes people to give up on their dreams decades before they need to. But here's what they don't tell you. Age brings advantages that youth doesn't have. You have experience that cannot be taught. You have perspective that only comes from living. You have resources, financial, emotional, and intellectual, that took years to accumulate. You have networks of relationships that young people are still building. You have clarity about what matters and what doesn't. There's loyalty. There's empathy. There's less decision and more time. You have the confidence that comes from surviving challenges and the wisdom to avoid mistakes you've already made. Most importantly, you have something young people don't have: urgency. When you're young, you think you have forever, you procrastinate, you waste time, you assume opportunities will always be there. But when you understand that your time is precious, you stop wasting it. You become more focused, more determined, more willing to take action. This urgency is not a burden, it's a gift. The woman who starts her business at 55 has advantages the 25-year-old entrepreneur doesn't have. She knows herself better. She has financial stability. She has a lifetime of experience to draw from. She has learned from other people's mistakes. She has developed patience and persistence. She has a clear vision of what she wants to accomplish and why it matters. The man who goes back to school at 45 has advantages the 20-year-old student doesn't have. He knows why he's there. He appreciates the opportunity. He has life experience to connect with the material. He has the discipline to study consistently. He has the maturity to handle setbacks and challenges. The person who decides to get in shape at 60 has advantages the 30-year-old fitness enthusiast doesn't have. They understand their body better. They have realistic expectations. They're not driven by vanity, but by health and longevity. They have the patience to build sustainable habits rather than looking for quick fixes. The truth is, you are not too old. You are not too late. You are not behind schedule. You are exactly where you need to be, with exactly the experience you need to have at exactly the right time to begin the next chapter of your life. The only thing holding you back is the belief that you've missed your chance. But chances don't expire. Dreams don't have expiration dates. The only time you're truly too late is when you're no longer breathing. So let me ask you this. What would you do if you knew you had unlimited time? What would you pursue if age was not a factor? What dream would you chase if you knew you couldn't fail? The answers to these questions are not fantasies. They are possibilities. And the time to turn possibilities into reality is not someday. It's not when you're ready. It's not when conditions are perfect. The time is now. Now that we've shattered the myth that you're too late, let me show you the scientific proof that your brain is actually designed for lifelong transformation. For decades, scientists believed that the adult brain was fixed and unchangeable. They thought that after a certain age, you were stuck with whatever neural pathways you had developed. This belief kept millions of people trapped in mediocrity, convinced that they couldn't learn new skills or change fundamental aspects of their lives. But then came one of the most revolutionary discoveries in neuroscience, neuroplasticity. Your brain, at any age, has the remarkable ability to reorganize itself, form new neural connections, and literally rewire its structure based on your experiences and activities. This means that the 60-year-old brain learning a new language creates the same type of neural pathways as a 20-year-old brain. The 70-year-old starting a business develops the same entrepreneurial thinking patterns as someone half their age. Dr. Michael Merzenich, a leading neuroscientist, studied the brains of people in their 80s and 90s who remained mentally sharp and active. What he found was astounding. Their brains showed the same plasticity and adaptability as much younger brains. The difference wasn't age. It was usage. The people who kept challenging themselves, learning new things, and pushing their mental boundaries maintained brain function that defied every stereotype about aging. This is why the compound effect becomes so powerful as you get older. Every small change you make creates a ripple effect in your brain, strengthening neural pathways and making the next change easier. When you read for 30 minutes a day, you're not just gaining knowledge, you're literally reshaping your brain's capacity for learning. When you exercise for 20 minutes daily, you're not just improving your physical health, you're enhancing your brain's ability to focus, solve problems, and retain information. Think about it this way. If you improved just 1% each day, you would be 37 times better at the end of 1 year. But here's what most people don't realize. This compound effect accelerates with age because you have more context, more connections, and more resources to build upon. The 50-year-old who starts learning piano doesn't just develop musical skills, they activate neural networks that improve their mathematical thinking, enhance their memory, and boost their creativity in ways that impact every area of their life. Consider the story of Anna Mary Robertson, better known as Grandma Moses. At 78, arthritis made it difficult for her to hold embroidery needles, so she switched to painting. She had no formal art training, no art background, and no reason to believe she had artistic talent. But she started anyway. Her brain, despite 8 decades of life, began forming entirely new neural pathways. She developed hand-eye coordination she never had, color recognition skills she never knew existed, and compositional abilities that surprised everyone, including herself. By the time she died at 101, she had created over 1.5 paintings and become one of America's most celebrated folk artists. The key insight here is that transformation doesn't require you to become a different person. It requires you to become more of who you already are. Your brain already contains all the raw material for change. Every experience you've had, every skill you've developed, every challenge you've overcome has created neural pathways that can be activated and strengthened. The businessman who becomes an artist is using the same problem-solving skills he developed in commerce. The teacher who starts a nonprofit is applying the same communication and organizational abilities she used in the classroom. But here's where most people sabotage themselves. They stay within their comfort zone. They stick to familiar routines, avoid new challenges, and wonder why they feel stuck. Your comfort zone is not just a mental concept. It's a physical reality in your brain. When you do the same things repeatedly, you strengthen the same neural pathways while allowing others to weaken. This is why people feel like they're in a rut. They literally are, they've carved deep grooves in their brain that make it automatic to think and act in predictable ways. The solution is simple but not easy. You must deliberately step outside your comfort zone on a regular basis. This doesn't mean making dramatic, life-altering changes every day. It means consistently choosing growth over comfort, learning over knowing, and possibility over certainty. When you learn a new word, take a different route to work, have a conversation with a stranger, or try a new recipe. You're creating new neural pathways. When you do this consistently, these small acts of courage compound into massive transformation. The most successful people understand this principle intuitively. They know that their brain is like a muscle. It grows stronger with use and weaker with neglect. They treat learning as a daily habit, not a one-time event. They seek out challenges that stretch their abilities. They surround themselves with people who push them to grow. They understand that comfort is not the goal. Growth is the goal. Your brain right now, regardless of your age, is capable of changes that would amaze you. The question is not whether you can change. Science has proven that you can. The question is whether you will choose to change. Will you activate the incredible capacity that's already within you, or will you let it remain dormant? The choice is yours, and the time to make it is now. Now that you understand your brain's unlimited capacity for change, let me give you the exact blueprint for transforming your life. This isn't theory. This is the practical strategy that has worked for thousands of people who decided to rewrite their story, regardless of their age. The foundation of all transformation rests on what I call the 1% principle. You don't need to change everything at once. You don't need to quit your job tomorrow, move to another country, or revolutionize your entire existence in one dramatic gesture. That approach leads to burnout, overwhelm, and failure. Instead, you need to get just 1% better each day in the areas that matter most to you. Let me show you how powerful this really is. If you want to write a book, you don't need to write 10 pages a day. Write just one paragraph daily. That's less than 1% of your waking hours. In 1 year, you'll have written 365 paragraphs, which is approximately 150 pages. That's a complete book created from just 15 minutes of daily effort. If you want to learn a new language, study for just 20 minutes each day. In 12 months, you'll have invested 120 hours, which is enough to achieve conversational fluency in most languages. The beauty of the 1% principle is that it works with your psychology, not against it. Your brain doesn't resist small changes, it resists big ones. When you try to transform everything at once, your subconscious mind activates every defense mechanism to maintain the status quo. But when you make tiny, consistent improvements, you slip past these defenses and create lasting change. Here's your strategic blueprint for total transformation. First, identify the 3 most important areas of your life that need change. Don't list 10 areas, that's a recipe for failure. Choose 3. Perhaps your health, your career, and your relationships. For each area, define exactly what success looks like. Don't use vague terms like be healthier or have more money. Be specific. Lose 20 pounds and walk 3 miles without getting winded. Or increase my income by 40% within 18 months. Once you have clear targets, break each goal into daily actions so small they seem almost ridiculous. If you want to lose 20 pounds, don't plan to spend 2 hours at the gym every day. Start with 10 push-ups each morning. If you want to increase your income, don't try to master every business skill immediately. Read 1 page of a business book each day. These actions seem insignificant, but they create momentum. And momentum is the secret to all achievement. Time management becomes critical at this stage. You cannot create more hours in your day, but you can eliminate time wasters and focus on high-impact activities. The average person spends over 3 hours daily on social media, television, and other distractions. Reclaim just 1 of those hours and dedicate it to your transformation. That's 365 hours per year. Enough time to learn a new skill, start a business, or completely change your physical condition. The key is to build systems, not just set goals. Goals tell you where you want to go, but systems get you there. If your goal is to write a book, your system might be wake up 30 minutes earlier each day. Sit at your desk with a cup of coffee and write for exactly 20 minutes before checking your phone or email. If your goal is to start a business, your system might be spend the first hour of each day researching your market, developing your product, or reaching out to potential customers. Systems create automaticity when you follow the same routine consistently. It becomes as natural as brushing your teeth. You stop relying on motivation and start depending on momentum. Motivation gets you started, but systems keep you going when motivation fails. Track your progress obsessively. What gets measured gets managed. Create a simple checklist for your daily 1% improvements and check off each item as you complete it. This creates a visual record of your commitment and provides psychological satisfaction that reinforces the behavior. Remember, transformation is not about perfection, it's about progression. Some days you'll miss your targets, skip your routines, or feel like giving up. This is normal and expected. The difference between people who succeed and those who quit is simple. Successful people get back on track immediately instead of waiting for Monday, next month, or next year. Your new life is not built in dramatic moments. It's built in daily decisions. Every morning you choose between the person you were and the person you're becoming. The strategic blueprint I've given you works, but only if you work it. Starting today, what will your 1% be? You now have the blueprint for transformation. But let me prepare you for what happens next, the moment you start implementing these changes. You'll face resistance. This resistance comes from two sources, internal and external. Understanding these forces and how to overcome them is the difference between temporary motivation and lasting transformation. Internal resistance is that voice in your head that says, "Who are you kidding?" This voice knows exactly what to say to stop you. It reminds you of every past failure, every time you started something and didn't finish, every reason why you're not qualified or deserving. It whispers that you're too old, too late, too set in your ways. This voice is not your enemy. It's your brain's security system trying to protect you from the perceived danger of change. Your subconscious mind is programmed to keep you safe. And safe means familiar when you try to change. Your brain interprets this as a threat to your survival. It activates the same alarm systems that would fire if you were being chased by a predator. This is why change feels uncomfortable, even when it's good for you. Your brain cannot distinguish between a tiger and a new challenge. Both trigger the same fear response. The solution is not to eliminate fear, but to reframe it. When you feel anxious about taking action, recognize it as a sign that you're growing. Fear is not a stop sign. It's a compass pointing toward what matters most to you. The things that scare you most are usually the things that will transform your life most dramatically. Every successful person has learned to act in spite of fear, not in the absence of it. External resistance comes from the people around you. Your family, friends, and colleagues have invested years in knowing you as a certain type of person. When you start changing, it threatens their sense of stability and predictability. They might say things like, you're going through a phase, or why can't you just be happy with what you have? Or people our age don't do things like that. This resistance isn't necessarily malicious, it's protective. They're trying to save you from what they perceive as disappointment or failure. But here's what you must understand. Their limitations are not your limitations. Their fears are not your fears. Their definition of what's possible is not your definition. You cannot let other people's small thinking shrink your big dreams. Financial concerns represent another major obstacle. Many people convince themselves they can't afford to change. They believe they need perfect conditions, unlimited resources, or complete financial security before they can pursue their goals. This is backwards thinking. You don't need money to start, you need to start to make money. Most successful transformations begin with imagination, determination, and resourcefulness, not capital. Elizabeth was 58 when her husband died, leaving her with limited savings and no career skills. Instead of accepting defeat, she started baking pies in her kitchen and selling them to neighbors. She reinvested every dollar into ingredients and equipment. Within 3 years, she had built a successful catering business that employed 12 people. She didn't wait for perfect conditions, she created them through action. The key to overcoming obstacles is to convert them into stepping stones. Every challenge you face is building strength, resilience, and wisdom that you'll need for the next level of your life. The person who starts a business at 55 faces different obstacles than someone who starts at 25. But they also have different resources, skills, and perspectives to draw upon. When you encounter resistance, whether internal or external, ask yourself this question: what would I do if I knew I couldn't fail? Then do that thing. Not tomorrow, not next week, but today. Take one small action that moves you toward your goal, despite the fear, despite the critics, despite the uncertainty. Remember, every obstacle you overcome makes you stronger. Every fear you face makes you braver. Every person who doubts you gives you more reason to prove them wrong. The path to transformation is not about avoiding obstacles. It's about developing the courage and skills to overcome them consistently. The greatest obstacle is not your age, your resources, or your circumstances. The greatest obstacle is the decision to let obstacles stop you. Choose to see them as opportunities to grow and watch how quickly your life begins to change. You've learned the science, you have the blueprint, and you understand the obstacles. Now let me show you how to live in your new reality and maintain the transformation mindset that will carry you through any challenge. This is where most people fail, not in starting their transformation, but in sustaining it when life gets difficult. The foundation of lasting change lies in your daily habits. Success is not a single event. It's a collection of small, consistent actions repeated day after day. The person you become is determined by what you do when nobody is watching, when you don't feel like it, when it would be easier to quit. These moments of choice define your character and determine your destiny. Create a morning routine that sets the tone for transformation. Wake up 30 minutes earlier than usual and use that time for activities that move you toward your goals. Read pages from a book that expands your knowledge. Exercise to strengthen your body and mind. Write in a journal to clarify your thoughts and track your progress. Meditate to reduce stress and increase focus. These activities might seem simple, but they compound over time to create extraordinary results. The people you surround yourself with will determine the speed and sustainability of your transformation. Your network is your net worth, not just financially, but emotionally and intellectually. Seek out people who are already living the life you want to create. Join groups, attend events, and engage with communities that support your goals. Distance yourself from people who consistently discourage your growth or pull you back into old patterns. Robert was 62 when he decided to become a marathon runner. He had never run more than a few blocks in his life, but he joined a running club filled with people who shared his newfound passion. The encouragement, accountability, and shared experience of that group carried him through months of early morning training. 2 years later, he completed the Boston Marathon. He didn't just transform his body, he transformed his entire identity. From someone who wasn't athletic to someone who accomplished what most people half his age never attempt. When motivation wanes, and it will, you must have systems in place to maintain momentum. Create accountability by telling others about your goals and asking them to check on your progress. Set up automatic reminders that keep your objectives front and center. Reward yourself for small victories to maintain enthusiasm. Most importantly, remember your why, the deeper reason that drove you to start this transformation in the first place. The most dangerous enemy of transformation is success itself, when you start seeing results. There's a temptation to coast, to think you've done enough, to return to old comfortable patterns. This is when you must push even harder. Use success as fuel for greater achievement, not as an excuse to stop growing. The person who loses 20 pounds and then stops exercising will gain it back. The person who builds a successful business and then stops innovating will lose it to competitors. Your legacy is not what you accomplish in your 20s or 30s. It's what you create with the wisdom, experience, and resources you've accumulated over a lifetime. The choices you make today will determine what story people tell about you when you're gone. Will they say you played it safe, accepted limitations, and settled for less than you were capable of? Or will they say you defied expectations, pursued your dreams relentlessly, and showed others what was possible? Consider Helen, who at 73 decided to learn photography. Her children thought it was a nice hobby to keep her busy, but Helen saw it differently. She spent 2 years mastering her craft, then began documenting the stories of elderly people in her community. Her photography project grew into a book that preserved the history and wisdom of an entire generation. She didn't just learn a new skill, she created a legacy that will outlive her. The time for excuses is over. The time for waiting is over. The time for someday is over. You have everything you need to begin your transformation today. Your age is not a limitation, it's an advantage. Your experience is not a burden, it's a foundation. Your past is not a prison, it's preparation for your future. 20 years from now. You will be 20 years older whether you transform your life or not. The only question is whether you'll be 20 years older with regrets or 20 years older with achievements. The choice is yours. And the time is now. Your extraordinary life is waiting for you to claim it. What are you going to do about it?